Hi, I'm Konstantinos, and I'm gonna give you a little tour to Al Jazeera English and Adobe Muse, and how we are using Adobe Muse to do some pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna be talking a lot, because I'm a journalist, so we're a little bit used to talk. I don't know if you have news people here. Do we? Okay, yeah, no, makes sense. Okay. I'm practically a hybrid between a writer and a designer, and I've had to decide, thank God. So people are calling me a visual journalist. That is how I can design the news, how I can give a really good idea of storytelling to people. How can I articulate stories, tell different stories, and actually make news a good experience for the readers. So Al Jazeera hired me and put me into this nice it's a newsroom, so things are moving fast. Even when they're moving slow, you know that this is our web newsroom where people are working to upload news. Let me tell you about how doing these things. So first of all, when we get a long-form project, especially long-form project, we have two people at least working on it. We have a designer and a developer. And then when we know what the story is about, we need to decide about the software and about how we set up all these interactivity elements we need to tell our story. Then the copy is being prepared. The copy goes around to the copy editing team, to chief editors, to whoever you name it, probably 10 different people. There are translators because Al Jazeera has, in Al Jazeera we need to do it in 4 different languages, in English, Arabic, Turkish, and Bosnian for our different bureaus. Then we prepare an alpha version, a very raw version, which has my design, their text, the coders describe at least what the interactivity is, and then we all sit down, everyone gets feedback, and then we do the near launch version. This is the version we share with the other bureaus, so they know what we are about to launch. And then when this is launched, when this is on the air of Al Jazeera, the social media teams, the editorial channels, everyone starts to promote this thing, and we start to get feedback. After a few days, all the people that are involved, we are sitting at the same table. We are discussing, we are viewing metrics, we are taking all the feedback from social media, even from people from the next office. What did you like? What did you don't like? And this is how we do our something like Bible of best practices. To do the long force, you are using Muse, as I told you again. We thought of using Muse because we do have complex stories to say. I can't remember a story that deserves to be told, and it's, I don't know, some text, some images, some videos. You can definitely do stuff like that, and Al Jazeera does features every day, and they're really good at that. But the idea of a feature that comes out of the CMS, the things that we do every day is this. It's title, an image, the text, probably another image, some quotes, perhaps some multimedia stuff. This is the stuff that we have to push out every day on the website. But there are stories that need to be told in a different way, definitely. And I'm going to show you some of the stories, and I'm going to show you how we did it. And we'll start with a story called Freedom Denied. This is when we actually discussed of using Muse. I had a producer who wanted to explore a project. She actually came to me with a question. I want to report what happens to Palestinians when they are arrested by the Israeli military. So she did all the reporting. She came to me with a huge pack of papers, and we decided to turn it into a storytelling device, because there is no infographic, there is no way to put this up either as a feature article, and it makes sense because of the complexity. And we thought that we could, she thought that at least she could do 3 different cases. So this is our first news project, and I know that this is nothing, actually, this is nothing to write home about, but this is what got us into this game. We just needed to build a website where you pick one of the story, and let's pick this one, and you're teleported into the story from a person's perspective. You need to have complex stuff like a menu that says what happened to the people, and you can obviously navigate to each and every one. The other pages are similar for the men and the women. And you obviously have a part where you can tell additional stuff. You can give facts, you can add interactives, you can add infographics so that it helps you explain the story better. Obviously, you cannot do it with a page that it's spit out of the CMS like that. It's a totally different thing, and this is how we thought about using Muse, how we could storyboard it, so we could put the 5 elements into the place, all the procedure. So this goes into a whole procedure, and then I get it, I do the design, we hook up the interactive stuff, and actually when we did that, I had absolutely no experience with Adobe Muse. I knew that it was like InDesign, that it was the InDesign for the web, as we were talking about, but if you have a clear plan of what goes where, what is the story you want to tell, I think things went really, really easy on doing it. So 3 days after that, we didn't even have the chance to sit down and discuss what we did right, what we did wrong. Comes another story, which is called The War Across the River, and I'm going to show it to you. It was a very, very weird story. There are people in Central Africa who are trying to avoid the war, so they're crossing a river to go to the other side and try to find their peace. But obviously, the other side, there's war too on Democratic Republic of Congo as well. So we sent there 2 guys, a photographer and a producer, and they came back with I think at least saw 2 or 3 hard drives full of images. I saw definitely a book full of notes that we're preparing to go to a text, and it's right then and there that you know that this is a special story, that you do not want to put it on the CMS, even in a series of articles. It makes absolutely no sense. So we start telling the story of those people, and we initially we tried a software that a web-based software that helps designers do long-form stories. We had, of course, several restrictions because we couldn't design the way we wanted to. We couldn't design the way we wanted to tell the story. So we drop it and we say, let's try Muse. And actually, we tried Muse, and I think it was a pretty nice experience because we could control definitely storytelling. We could have additional images, and we did all those things that we actually wanted to give the story. We always keep the text in the middle so that the reader never loses focus of the story, but then you see the people that are the true protagonists. You can hear their voices, you can interact when you click. You have some pretty basic, though, parallax effects, but they are there to highlight several stuff. You have your captions, and this thing we did in a week with 3 different layouts, because this is actually the first time we tried to do a tablet and a mobile layout, as Muse gave us the possibility to do so. And this was what gave us our first news site of the day. And actually, this is what kept us a little bit from going into this, because you get news stories like that every day. I mean, after that, and after Freedom Denied, really, people were coming in from the web newsroom and tell us, I have a story to do it this way. I have a story to do it that way. Let's do it with huge imagery. Let's do it with multimedia, with everything. There, you need to be a little bit picky, so you don't do everything. So this is not special anymore. So you do not do everything as a long form, but when you see something that is really worth it, then you go ahead and do it. And thank God, this next story that came is this one, and this is really what I'm going to keep playing for a second while I'm telling you the story. So I don't know if you guys know about what happened in Sri Lanka 5 years ago. There was a huge civil war, and after that, it was really difficult for Western journalists to get in to report, even if after the war has ended. Al Jazeera was lucky enough to get permission for a journalist, Marcel Hopkins, a really good journalist, to go in there with Andrew Bloom. He's not a cameraman, he's a cinematographer, so there. And they got some amazing images out of that. And it's not only the images, but there are some stories that are really, really haunting. We sat down with the guys before they went, and they had a rough idea of how they want to do this. The material that we saw after that totally exceeded what we were expecting from that. So we said, yeah, that this deserves to be a story that we build with Muse, that deserves to be a really special story. And it's a story that obviously has huge multimedia. It's a story that has really good imagery and a very powerful text, which actually goes on and on chapters, and you can see the image is changing depending to whatever we're seeing. There are some also additional data on top of that. This was, I think, one of the best stories that we did because it was really, really worth it, and actually taught us two things. One thing is that you need to do really good storyboarding. We went back and changed the text 2, 3, 4 times because we really needed to do justice to these stories. And another probably design lesson that can be derived from that is that you should better step back. You should better not go in there and cram all design ideas or whatever trends or whatever you have in your head when you have really powerful visuals, because these visuals tell some story. You need to let a little bit the story breathe. One thing is that after those three, the first 3 stories that we did with Muse, we sat down and saw some reviews, some metrics, not only the opinion of the other guys, but actual numbers, and compared them to the features. You start to get an idea of, now I need to do that. Now I need to do specific stories. I need to send people on the field with specific instructions. They need to capture specific stuff and come back to build the story. So the next long form we did, it was actually probably the easiest because it's called Story of the Football, and it let me open it up for you. It's the ball of the World Cup, and we had a journalist, a producer, go back to Pakistan, to the city that this ball is produced, and he found the people that actually producing the ball. They found the owner of the factory, and they talked with the women that actually saw the balls, and he even went to the place that balls are stitched, and he came back with some really good imagery and actually really good stories about how all these balls are being produced in the background. So we have a team in Al Jazeera that's called the investigations team. These are the guys that actually find news that are not reported, and they unearth them. They do all the investigations, and they come up with documentaries, give or take an hour or so, which are really, really nice and really totally a reporting thing, a really huge reporting thing. I will show you exactly what I mean. This is a story about corruption in Egypt, in the power, a gas crisis in Egypt, but it's a really interesting story. So the investigations team built this documentary where you can play it, or you can go and read actually what happened to the story. This is an explainer that we needed to build, so that if you don't want to view the story, or if you have viewed it already, and you need a few things to understand, this is actually a standalone long form that we wanted to accompany the video story that we did, and with several added stuff, several interactive elements, some infographics, some numbers. And you could always, of course, go back and start seeing the story. A story about the informant of the FBI in Muslim communities, a report that, again, the investigative team wanted us to use as an explainer. So this is a different kind. First of all, the first 3 stories are stories that you can plan. You can actually send people in the field. They come back with stuff. You have the ability to communicate with them. But these are stories that are totally different. These are stories that are being done probably in a day or 2, because this documentary needs to go into the air at a specific time. It's an investigation, so most of the parts of it are unknown to us. So at some point you get with a huge pile of material that needs to be structured in a story really fast. This is where Muse shined, because this is a story that we did in 3 days again, and in between doing other things, and we used several Muse elements. We're going to use a software called Hyper Audio. Hyper Audio helped us do this thing when we had to go through all of the States of the Union of Obama, and you see the video and you see the transcript. So it's all searchable. Everything is taken off the transcript onto text. And now, for example, I can search for the word economy and know where in its State of the Union we've seen economy. He's talked about economy. I can probably click and hear it as well. I can click the word chamber here and probably go to the specific part. You can definitely search for economy in 3 years and not in all years, so then everything is changing. So we're going through 20 films in 4 different languages, because each language needs to have its own player and its own transcript, and we're going to put on top of Muse the ability to actually remix, to create custom players, custom videos based on all these things from the transcript.